Hello and welcome everybody to the Dam Guru program member webinar Smart Metadata. My name is Carsten Hesse and I will give you a short introduction of why I chose this metadata topic to talk about today, and then tell you something about some basic, advanced and even intelligent ways to get and handle metadata, and in the end give you just a brief summary, the stuff to remember. So let's start. Some words about me. Currently, I'm working as a consultant for a German company called Six that offers content management and digital asset management systems. I have been more than 10 years in the DAM market, but even longer worked with media and media assets. I started my career in a pre-press company for a major newspaper in Berlin. And most of the 10 years I spent as a product manager for several DAM vendors, including companies you probably all know. So this kind of history gives me an understanding of the users, the clients, and the vendors' perspective in this industry, and helps me as a consultant, of course. You can reach me via email and via Twitter, and of course via LinkedIn and Facebook. So let me give you a short introduction. Why talk about such a boring topic like metadata? Isn't there something more exciting? You could come with the sentence and say that metadata management has been around for more than 20 years and it is mature. Well, no, it isn't. And at the end of the webinar, you hopefully understand why. But before we dive deeper into this, let's recall the following. What's the core value of metadata in a DAM? Probably we all would agree that it is that assets can be found by the right person or service at the right time on the right device for the right purpose. Let me give you some examples of that. It could be that I need to attach the new product brochure to my press release in WordPress, or my CMS system needs to show a low-res preview of product images when users search for products on my website. Or I need to show my customer her company's most recent advertisement on my tablet when I'm a sales guy out there in the field. So if this is true, that only the right metadata makes these use cases happen in the first place, isn't metadata then the most important thing to care about in your DAM? I mean, you cannot preview an asset that is not found. You cannot download it, not use it, not share it. There's no distribution of assets, no integration, no interoperability, no customer experience, no other buzzword without valuable metadata to select the right asset. If you ask people in our industry what a metadata actually is, the most common answer is probably it's additional and customizable information that can be attached to assets. And this is also where metadata management in DAM systems usually ends. But is that all? And is that smart? Let me give you another definition of metadata. I believe that it's about your workflows. It helps you to streamline your processes. It saves you time and money, and it makes your employees happy. So everyone using a DAM should behave like these people on the photo, because metadata is the heart of it all. Now you probably think, how do I get this wonderful metadata? Well, DAM systems provide you with a lot of tools that you can use to manually enter any metadata you like. Some read information out of files when importing these assets, which is actually metadata that has been entered manually in another program. But before you use these tools, you should define your own taxonomy. You know, your DAM is highly adaptable to your needs when it comes to metadata. But you have to become clear of what you need. And of course, consultants can help you with that. But you might ask, but how does DAM help me get and enter the metadata that's best for my colleagues and me? Next question. In many cases, it just does not help. It's your responsibility alone to verify that the metadata that goes into the DAM is valuable to your company. Some call it shit in, shit out. Remember that metadata is the most important thing to consider, and my DAM system just leaves me alone with that? Maybe you get a clue now where there's room for improvement here. So what we know so far is valuable metadata is the core of a DAM. But let's have a closer look now how it gets there and what valuable actually means. A side note at this point, don't get me wrong. A metadata model is extremely helpful and required. It's absolutely necessary to define some sort of taxonomy based on your processes and workflows. Some clients resist and are not willing to spend the time to do this, and they often fail. You need to invest the time beyond system installation and education and become clear with your colleagues what metadata needs to be attached to your assets. And I would call this basic metadata, or obvious metadata, or classic asset-related metadata. Every DAM system is good at basic metadata management. At least you would expect this. But read the fine print. The point here is that your DAM system should ensure that your taxonomy is met, at least help you with that, instead of leaving you alone with it. And they come with features like categories, lists, mandatory inputs, field types, validation tags, keywords, and controlled vocabulary. So this is great stuff, but how does it work in detail? The feature itself often doesn't help. It needs to be beneficial to your process, and DAM systems vary much in these details. I will show you some examples there. A very simple one. You want to attach numbers to your assets, like a contact's phone number or an article number. And you want to make sure that there's no A, B, C, D characters written in these fields. Okay, no problem. DAM provide field types for that. Okay, checkmark set. But later in the process, you realize that you want to store the phone number in a more appropriate way, or that your product information system delivers article numbers with dashes. In these cases, a number field does not help anymore. You need to use a text field, and obviously someone could enter ABCD in that. So checkmark unset. But hey, even a simple web form can check a valid phone number, so there needs to be a solution in DAM, right? Yes, some sort of validation is available in DAMs. But again, how does it work in detail? Is it configurable to your needs, to your special formatting that you need for your article numbers, for example? And how is it presented to the user? The worst case is that there's just an inactive save button with no further information. Better is when there's an indication of what is incorrect. Much better is if there's a help or a hint that shows why something is incorrect. But maybe best would be if it just informs the user that something is incorrect and there's no inactive save button. Why? Because the worst case is that the asset doesn't get imported at all because the user didn't know what to enter in a mandatory field. I recently read an article where the biggest issue they faced with introducing a DAM system was that a lot of users just don't put their assets into the DAM. Another example are tags or keywords. Every DAM provides these features in some way, but again, is it beneficial to your process? If tags are stored in a simple text field, like here, there's no relation between them. But you may want to change a tag later on and probably don't want to do it again for all the assets that you already have tagged. In this case, what you need is rather a tag list from where tags are referenced so that changes are reflected everywhere. And I'm not talking about good or bad implementation here. I just want to make clear that features will work different depending on your needs. So make sure they fit yours. Also make sure that features stay usable in your individual workflow. Have a look at an example of how to enter tags. So is it that you need to select tags from a list? This works great with 10 tags or in a sales presentation. But if you have hundreds and are being offered with an infinite list to scroll through, you can imagine that your users won't use that. Let's assume you have a type ahead feature. Check the suggestions in detail. Do you need to exactly enter the characters it starts with? Or is there some sort of contain search, like here with camel? And then how is it sorted? Users would probably expect that the results that starts with Mel are listed first. So there's no alphabetic sorting here. Is it possible to enter new tags? And is it somehow reflected in the user interface that something is new? If you want to set up a controlled vocabulary, it's also necessary to bind this to some sort of user permissions, for example, that not everyone can enter new tags. And there might even be the need for more than one controlled vocabulary, each with a different context. But many DAMs just offer only one field for tagging. And there are many, many other examples. Let's talk about ratings, for example. Don't expect them necessarily to work like in Amazon, where they're an average value of several user ratings. In DAM, it's often just a single value attached to one asset. I'm stressing these details because this is the way your users are supposed to work every day. If they find it cumbersome or difficult to enter metadata, they won't use it, which makes your DAM virtually useless. In other words, if we all agree that metadata is the core value of your DAM, of our DAM system, the process of entering metadata must have highest priority. So make sure that this runs smoothly. So now everything is perfectly tagged manually. Is your DAM ready to serve now? Well, I would say no. What you need is some more advanced stuff. So let's talk a bit about context and collaboration. The bad news is taxonomy isn't all you need. Well, you need it, but it's not the only criteria. Once you agreed on a metadata model, you will face change requests. This is a fact unless you're a group of maybe 5 people that will work together for the rest of your lives. But business usually evolves, and so do your needs. And there are those new to the system that most likely do not know about any taxonomy you once set up. But there's another important factor when the group of participants of a DAM system gets bigger. And this is that people do not think in taxonomy. And again, this is something that your DAM should solve, at least as best as possible. So it's important that the system adds contextual metadata that helps users find stuff using their natural way of thinking. Let me give you an example. Meet this nice little sales guy. He just thinks, I need to get the new flyer John used at the trade show last week. So in an analog world, guess what he would probably do? He would go to his friend or colleague in marketing, Michael, and ask him just that. Hey, Michael, can you send me some of our new flyers from the trade show last week? And Michael would say, sure. And because he is a smart guy, he also asked, do you also need the data sheet for the new product that we advertise in this flyer? So this is an easy and smooth process. There's just one problem. 100 sales guys will make Michael cry. That's why they bought a DAM, and it starts the same way. But the sales guy doesn't think different just because there's the DAM, and he doesn't find it. So they suggested him that he should read the taxonomy manual. And probably you can imagine what the answer would be. So has this process improved? No. And probably the result is that he won't use your DAM because he doesn't find things. So the taxonomy is not valuable to the sales guy. And there will always be some people that are not familiar with your taxonomy. But hey, there was so much context. Remember that? New, flyer, John used, trade show, last week. And he even knows that Michael is the marketing guy who can send these things to him. Of course, some of these information could have been tagged with an asset, but most of it doesn't make sense. And you should not over-tag assets as well, because then you will have too many results in the end. But there's a unique context in many ways. Let me show you some examples how features could help you getting this context out of your DAM. So probably, or maybe your DAM offers something like jobs or projects, or sometimes it is solved even with categories, which is some sort of a container with its own metadata and structure where assets can be linked. So maybe there's a project or job called trade show, even with a date or something. So the sales guy could have looked in your DAM for this kind of project and would have found the assets. The second feature could be something like user profiles, where you can see the uploads of a user, what he has recently worked on, what he has shared, what favorites he has. In this scenario, for example, the sales guy would have looked on Michael's user profile and would have seen that there has been some uploads and recent work on the flyers for this trade show. Maybe John, who was on the trade show, would have marked this as favorite asset. So there are ways that the sales guy would have used that. And actually, it's a bit like Facebook. I know this is no business software, but it's good that this kind of software shows us that software can be social. And this is what we actually are about as humans, social interaction. And I think that business software really needs to adapt this. The last example here, maybe your dam offers some kind of dashboard where you company-wide see what's new, what's hot, where there are some social features integrated. For example, the sales guy could have posted a question where the new flyer is on Michael's profile, and then everybody else in sales would have seen that. So make sure that there is contextual metadata in your DAM system. Who uploaded it? When was it uploaded? What was uploaded? For what purpose? How? And what else? And again, it's not that there are these features, but it needs to fit to your process. For example, if a DAM vendor just says, yes, these informations are in our DAM system, and then in the end, it's just on the server in a report or in some log files, it doesn't help you. It needs to be accessible to users in a way that they profit from it. But it doesn't stop here. DAMs could be much smarter. Let's have a look at this very easy question. Would you like some coffee for breakfast? This is such an obvious phrase that we don't think about it anymore. But for a software system, it's quite challenging to compute such a question because it implies a connection between breakfast and coffee. And to make it smart, it even needs to know that I'd like rather tea for breakfast. Of course, you all know questions and suggestions like these on the internet. Like on a Google search, did you mean this and that? Or you might be interested also in something like this, which implies that the system knows something about my personal habits. Or users also bought, which is more like a social feature. But what about DAM? I mean, it's not science fiction anymore. It has happened already. So DAM, talk to me, make suggestions, show me more, know me better, let's have fun together. Some years ago, computers were dumb tools, and you had to do all the work. They're starting to get smart, and that's because there's someone who made it finally possible. So may I introduce friend and foe, Mr. Big Data. Why friend and foe? Well, DAM engineers are frightened of him because their DAM database will not provide enough room for Mr. Big Data. He needs so much space that he lives only out there in the cloud. And of course, we all have security concerns putting our data into the cloud, right? I guess I could start a discussion here of the pros and cons of software as a service running in the cloud and on-premise DAMs, but that doesn't help here. Also, I think this discussion is mostly about file storage, backup, and file syncing and these things, but not about metadata. And by the way, vendors with a cloud offering don't have necessarily access to Mr. Big Data because their private cloud is too small for him as well. But he is such a helpful animal. It would be great to benefit from his offerings. Let me give you some examples of his offerings. There are metadata services out there that help you with tagging. So for example, you suggest a tag and then get similar tags back. You can provide like phrases and get spell checking back or synonyms, or you could even check social activity on some keywords. And there are also image services out there with face recognition, with content recognition, finding similar photos or images, or getting the location out of your image. So why not mash up in terms of metadata? And what about security? Well, you don't have to put your business report into the cloud, and all your valuable metadata remains at your location in the local area network or even in the private cloud. It's just necessary to maybe send over some non-critical metadata. Let me give you an example here as well. So what would be the tagging benefit, for example? I just upload an asset into my local DAM and tag it with melon. And then in the background, the magic happens. Melon is just put as a keyword into the cloud, and Mr. Big Data suggests fruit and food. And my UI reflects this. So this is not science fiction. These services exist, and there are many more of them. They can help and support users, and you can imagine that they will like and appreciate it and start liking actually your DAM. So ask your DAM vendors for these kind of interfaces. Some of them already have like a Google Maps integration, and this is not much different from that. So let me give you a quick summary of the stuff to keep in mind. First of all, find a DAM champion who takes care of your DAM, an evangelist for internal and external processes. Talk to people. This is really critical. Take the time to talk to people involved in any process that refers to your assets. I often see people suffering then later on in the detailed process. And if you need support, just contact your vendor or your partner or whatever. Think in processes, not in features. Make sure that your DAM supports your process. If you're unsure, request demos that show details on these kind of features. If you have a DAM that does not have this, then request it for the next release or change the DAM. I mean, a DAM that has no useful metadata is a dead DAM and just costs money without any help to you. Request a test period and test the DAM with a real scenario of yours. Use real data for that and real assets. It can be old data, but it needs to reflect your daily business. It's really worth the cost to invest in a test scenario. Not only click around, upload an asset, but work on it in real-world scenarios. Do not rely only on taxonomy, and don't be frustrated when it doesn't work for all your people. It will not. Make sure your DAM supports as many contextual data as possible. If it doesn't, again, keep asking for it. And the same applies for integrating helpful cloud services. There is a discussion that there's no innovation in DAM, which I actually don't really like because it implies somehow that we all wait for the next big thing, that we really need to completely reinvent DAM, come up with something brand new so that marketing people can use another up-to-date buzzword. But have a look at car manufacturers, for example. They create products that bring you from A to B. And I never heard a vendor say, with a new model, you also get a garage, or your next SUV will even feed you while you're on the road. Still, every generation of cars is getting better, more secure, more efficient, more comfortable, and hell, there is innovation. I have a head-up display now, but still, my car just brings me from A to B. Or take the first iPhone. I think everybody says it was innovative, but it actually had no new features. It was a phone, you could connect to the internet, and it played music. But it reinvented or innovated the way we use a phone in usability, streamlined the process we use a mobile device. It started to make fun. It was actually the first smart phone. And I think we're still a bit away from a smart DAM or smart metadata. And I think sometimes that we might have lost focus in the DAM industry. So when all you DAM customers and prospects keep requesting a smarter DAM that makes fun to work with, then we will change this industry. Actually, you are the market. So make sure that these things will happen at your DAM. With that said, I will open up to questions. Okay, there's one question. Why do you think DAM systems haven't caught on to this? Yeah, well, it's a good question, and there are several reasons for it. Probably because some DAM systems or DAM systems that are longer on the market are built on software that is not, of frameworks that is not easy to change. And it's often too costly for DAM vendors to reinvent it all and bring up a new and innovative user interface. I mean, this is really not about features here. It's more or less about how it is used by users. And I think that social media software and even things like iPhones and these things and iPads and tablets finally taught us that we can use software and have fun with it. And business software is a bit late. So I think they invested more in the new marketing buzzword and the new features and lost somehow the focus. This is what I think why they haven't caught up so far. The next question, you say that taxonomy isn't enough, but aren't those smart tags part of a taxonomy too? Well, yeah, smart tags maybe are part of the taxonomy, but all the contextual metadata is not part of the taxonomy. So for example, who uploaded something, or if you have like a user profile where somebody just adds favorites and another DAM user then sees the favorites of the marketing guy, for example. So this is nothing that you define in your taxonomy, but that helps other users find stuff. So these things, I guess, are not part of a taxonomy, and you would never identify them as those when you set up a taxonomy. How do you think multi-language issues will play into this? When you have 11 meaning different things in English and German, how can the DAM know? Well, the question is, how does Google know when you search for something that it's probably something that you want to know in English or in German? I mean, it depends. When the system is smart, it probably knows that you are a German guy or an English guy, and then suggests the things appropriate to your language. Of course, it will never know probably that you're a German guy and looking for an English term. I don't know. And again, I think it's not about how this is technically solved. It's more about is it clear for the user what is presented? I mean, if I search in Google on Google DE, for example, and I see that the results are in English, then I recognize that probably this is not German. And it's just about how a DAM presents these informations to the users so that they really easily know what they see. How do you feel about having metadata embedded into the original files that a user downloads? Well, I feel good about this. It's of course a good thing to have metadata embedded into files, but then again, if the user that downloads the files doesn't know how to access this kind of metadata, so if it's not useful in the process, then there's no need to do it. If you have a process, for example, where you have like, I don't know, photographers who put metadata into IPTC or XMP tags and then upload it to your DAM, and there's another role of designers that download this stuff, and they need some of this metadata in their follow-up process, for example, for using it in a brochure or something like that, then it makes sense to do that. But if you don't need it in your process, it's useless to have this feature, at least to you. How do you imagine the basic DAM UI would have to change to accommodate this smart metadata approach? Well, I have given some examples, I think. Of course, I was not allowed to put some existing UI into this presentation, but I think it's not that difficult. So the tagging interface again, it's not necessary to show the user where the tag suggestions come from in the end. Your DAM user just wants to upload an asset and types a tag, and then he's happy when the DAM system provides suggestions. And I think he will not care if this is from Mr. Big Data or from your smart database. It's just that it's helpful to the user. So I think there is no need to change the UI in a way that it fits to cloud services. I mean, you have many DAM systems already that show a map, a Google map, when you have like GPS data in your photograph. So the UI adapted to this as well. Why not for smart metadata? Do you fear that a more automated approach to metadata entry should introduce errors on a wider scale? Could introduce errors on a wider scale. I don't think so. It again depends on how your DAM provides ways to tell you that there are entries or assets that have incorrect metadata. So for example, if you have like a validation on an article number or something like this, and then you get like hundreds of assets imported into your DAM, and 20 of them have a mismatch in the article number, then the question is what happens? There are no more or less errors, I think, if you would have done this manually. The question is, when you would have done this manually, there's a human being sitting in front correcting these errors. And if it's done automatically, there might be no automated approach to correct this, but it is enough to somehow send an email or notify someone who will. And if it's a smart process, then probably it should mark these assets as I don't know, as red or as like do not use or something like this. So then you can have a more automated approach and also have a process for error corrections. Do you think that other technologies will start to offer smarter metadata services before DAM gets around to do it? Yes. Sometimes I look into other systems like Dropbox or like OwnCloud or like, I don't know, even the US, the OS that offer really like smart metadata services. But until now, I think there is not a system that has all the benefits a DAM could give you because it's not their focus. For example, Apple with this OS X tagging for files is not interested in replacing a DAM with collaboration features and all the other stuff that we didn't cover here that a DAM provides as benefit for you. So I think there are other technologies who offer already smarter metadata services, but I think they will not replace them. So we're just a little late in this industry. We need to keep up. Do you think that metadata services should remain part of DAM or as a service? I think I showed on my slide that there will be metadata services in the cloud from Mr. Big Data that will never be, or at least not in the nearest future, achieved by a DAM because we don't have this big data in a DAM. You really need tons of data. So it makes sense to use these metadata services from outside. But of course, I think that the metadata that is valuable to your DAM should stay in your DAM. It's just a helping service from the outside that helps users entering metadata. Okay, good. I think this was it. No more questions. So thank you everybody for joining me in this webinar. It was fun, and I hope that the information was somehow useful to you. So bye for now.